Was the deadline initially set the one that was set after the last order that I issued on this matter?
Yes, it was, and it was based upon his estimate to me of how long it would take. There were two experts, one of whom had said it would take him 5 weeks till the end of May. This expert had indicated 3 weeks from when he got back from a vacation, and this indicates that he really needs the 5 weeks as well, so I would request that he have that.
So he needs to the end of May as well, just as the other expert? Yes. All right, and who was the defense expert that was at issue?
Well, it was Dr. Woodcock had given us that report, and also Dr. Gore had given a report, and I had previously indicated that I was going to wait for a response to Dr. Gore because we were waiting for some additional information that she was going to be providing. But I'm just going to have him do what he can with that as well and combine them into one report.
But the motion dealt with Dr. Woodcock,
That's
correct?
correct.
All right. Does the defense have any objection to this? Ms. Brady?
So we'll be getting the report by the end of May?
May 31. All right, thank you. Without the defense objecting or taking a position on it, or I should say without the defense specifically objecting, because they're taking no position on this, the request is granted. The contents of the letter show that this is not a delayed tactic. It appears to be a request that's based on some issues that have come up that were not anticipated, and also based on an estimate of the materials that have to be reviewed that was perhaps not as accurate as the expert wishes it should have been. And the expert at issue is Dr. Philip Resnick, just so that the record is clear. All right, what do you want to do with this letter, Mr. Orman? Since I'm not reading it into the record, it probably makes sense to make it part of the record.
Maybe just make it a court exhibit, Your Honor. That would be fine with me.
All right, we'll mark it as a court exhibit. What's the next court exhibit?
9.
9? Okay, so we'll mark it as court exhibit number 9, trial exhibit number 9. And are you asking that this be sealed or suppressed? I guess it would be suppressed.
Suppressed, Your Honor.
Suppressed? Okay. And I'm assuming there's no objection to that, Ms. Brady?
Right.
All right, we'll suppress it. Thank you. Well, sorry. Thank you. All right, anything else from the people? Anything from the defense? No? Okay, are you folks ready for the jury? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Let's see if we can bring the jury in, please. Good morning, folks. Have a seat, please. Good morning. The record should reflect that the jury has joined us again. Did everyone have a good weekend this weekend? Good. Thank you for coming back, and thank you for being on time. Would the people please call their next witness?
The people call Daniel Reed.
Good morning. Can I have you raise your right hand so I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record, and please spell your first and last names?
Of course. My name is Daniel Paul Reed, and my first name is Daniel. My last name is Reed, Reed.
Mr. Edson, you may proceed.
Thank you. What is an executive relations analyst with Verizon?
Part of my responsibilities include being a custodian of records for civil and criminal cases, as well as small claims, litigation, arbitrations, and mediations, and executive complaints.
How long have you been employed with Verizon Wireless?
10 years.
Specifically, how long have you been an executive in that area, the executive relationship analyst with Verizon Wireless?
1 year.
What are your current duties?
Well, like I stated, I testify to records as far as the civil and criminal subpoenas to verify the authenticity of our records. Are you referring to that specific role?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we verify that they're true and accurate records of Verizon Wireless, also that they were captured at or near the time that they were placed, and also confirm that these are kept in the regular course of our business.
Have you previously testified in a live trial setting related to the authenticity of Verizon Wireless records?
Yes.
Do you have an approximation how many times?
This is probably the 5th time.
Have you previously testified in a criminal matter related to Verizon Wireless records?
Yes.
Do you, sir, have specific knowledge with how Verizon Wireless maintains their cellular phone records for their customers?
I do. Verizon cellular switches actually track the call processing activity for the Verizon Wireless mobile transmissions in the area. The switches then feed that information into the Verizon Wireless computer system, which feeds the information in the appropriate billing system. The information regarding Verizon Wireless subscriber and the dates, times, and durations of calls for each account is downloaded into the Verizon Wireless billing system to generate a toll record, which the customer receives, essentially bill copy. We then print copies of toll records from the billing system.
Does Verizon Wireless use the same methods for maintaining all of the records related to cellular phone service for their customers?
Yes.
Do you have knowledge of the process that's used when Verizon Wireless receives a records request and how that's transmitted to the person who's requesting the records?
Certainly. Our law enforcement resource team actually receives the request, and then we provide the documents in a digital electronic format on a CD, which is then presented to the requesting party.
To the best of your knowledge, the information that's contained in that digital electronic format, can that be printed out into actual paper form?
Yes, it can.
Is that something that Verizon does?
Verizon Wireless does not.
Prior to coming into court this morning and testifying in this matter, have you had an opportunity to view People's Exhibit 1079, which is the exhibit that's before me here, and I'll come and show it to you here in a moment, but have you had an opportunity to view this particular exhibit?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes.
Do we have the handheld mic right there, Judge?
It should be in the witness. Oh, here, we have it over here. Yep.
You've seen it, right? Okay. Judge, with the court's permission, I'd like to ask 2 or 3 questions standing here before I go back to the lectern.
That's fine.
Sir, I've handed you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 1079. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes.
In general, what is this exhibit?
It includes quite a few records, but call detail records, text messaging detail records, also keys to explain what those records mean. I believe there's also some content as well as far as text. So various items in here.
Is this the exhibit that you previously viewed before coming to court today?
Yes, it is.
You can just leave it right there on the witness stand, Mr. Edson. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
People's Exhibit 1079. Is that a copy, a duplicate copy of Verizon Wireless records?
Yes, it's a duplicate printed copy.
Those particular records, do they correlate with any particular subscriber cell phone number or target number?
Yes, they do.
What is that number?
It's 858-449-7348.
Do the records that are contained within People's Exhibit 1079, do they fairly and accurately depict the records that are held in the normal and regular course of business by Verizon Wireless?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because again, that's part of my job. We also, as I mentioned about the number of times I've testified, I've had quite a few more actual subpoena requests, and in each one we would review the records. So this is quite common. It's just a regular practice of my position.
And did you in fact review the records even beyond this particular exhibit? Did you review the records yourself related to this case?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, are the records contained within People's Exhibit 1079 accurate related to Verizon Wireless records?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, are the information contained within People's Exhibit 1079 made within a reasonable time period associated with the time period that was requested for those records?
Yes.
Finally, sir, do you have personal knowledge, based upon your review and your background for your particular occupation, for the contents of those records?
Excuse me, the content? What,
Yeah, the information that's contained within those records.
Oh, yes.
Judge, at this time, I would move for admission to People's Exhibit 1079.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, People's Exhibit 1079 is admitted.
Sir, if I could have you just put People's Exhibit 1079 up on the kind of the front of your, yeah, right there. That's a rather large exhibit. Can you just tell us, in general, what are some of the various sections of that exhibit? What are we looking at?
Well, there's the call detail records, so that's going to explain the numbers that were made and received calls to that phone. There's also the text message detail records, so we can see the actual phone numbers that sent and received any text messages. There is also some text messaging content for a relatively small time frame. There's also, let me just view it again to refresh my memory. Also in the call detail records, there's also cell site information, so that can explain what cell site the call was actually pinging off of when the call was made.
Right. Do you have knowledge, in your occupation, in your particular position, about how to actually read a cell phone record?
Yes.
Judge, with the court's permission, I would request to publish 1 page of that document. I've conferred with counsel on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So People's Exhibit 1079. I think we're going to try and zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so to your back right corner there, and actually, Judge, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So for purposes of the record and for counsel, sir, I'd like to direct your attention to the section within People's Exhibit 1079 that is referring to CDR site. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
What does CDR stand for?
Call detail record.
Specifically, I'm referring you to page 4 of 8 within that section. Do you see that within People's Exhibit 1079?
Yes.
And then even further in detail, we have on the screen right now a snapshot of some of the page of People's Exhibit 1079 of the page 4 of 8 within the CDR section. Does that look familiar to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And narrowing it down even more, I've got a pointer behind you if you want to use that, and I'll have you use the handheld mic if you need to stand up.
Okay.
But a particular call that I want to draw your attention to is one that was made on July 20th, 2012 at 0:30. Do you see what I'm referring to?
Yes.
So what I'd like you to do, sir, is as a way to educate ourselves about this, can you just kind of walk us through that particular phone call from left to right and how to read this in the cell phone records?
Certainly.
If you need to get down, we have a handheld mic right there. Just make sure to turn it on.
Mr. Edson, I don't know if the jury can see those numbers from where they're seated. I don't believe they can. So
Okay.
if that was your intent, I don't think that that's going to work.
Understood, Judge. What we'll do is we'll make it as large as we can. We'll also talk about it verbally for the jury. For the record, we are attempting to make this particular section larger. Sir, I do want to ask you one additional question. Contained within People's Exhibit 1079, is there an explanation form as to how to read the cell phone records as well?
There is.
Okay. Is that something that you rely on and how to read the different columns related to a cell phone record?
I would rely on that in some circumstances, yes.
Okay. So we've made this as large as we possibly can. What I want you to do, if you would please, is to point to the different columns and then just tell us what they are referring to, if that makes sense.
It does. The only concern is at the top there should be what the name of the column to. I don't know if we can make that included in there, but
Okay.
because aside from that, it's just columns. I mean, I can explain it, but it.
Can you go ahead and explain it for
Yeah,
us?
sure.
All I'm looking for is I just want you to explain to the jury one phone call and just tell us how to read that phone call in the cell phone records.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So this particular call is actually on this line here. Now, you wanted me to explain what's going on with this call?
Please.
Okay. So on July 20th, 2012 at 12:30 a.m., the target number 858-449-7348 called 720-648-0000, and the call lasted, I believe that says 18 seconds. It's kind of even hard for me to read. And it pinged off of cell phone tower number 324.
Okay. What I'd like you to do now is to go ahead and have a seat for us, please. And though it's duplicative, I'd like you to, again, go through that particular line now that you have the actual clear record in front of you.
Sure.
That was more just to explain how to read the line.
Okay.
So go ahead, and the call that I'm looking at is, again, July 20th, 2012 at 0:30.
Yes.
Okay. So what was the phone number making the call?
The phone number that made the call was 858-449-7348.
What was the number that was being dialed?
The number dialed was 720-848-0000.
What time was that call?
12:30 a.m. on July 20th, 2012.
What was the duration or length of that call?
18 seconds.
When you're saying that the call was made at essentially 12:30 in the morning of July 20th, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Is that number when it's actually dialed or when somebody hangs up?
That's as soon as the number dials and connects to our network.
Okay. Can you just describe, just in general for the jury, how an out-of-state cell phone that is here in Colorado, how that routes through your network?
So essentially, it's primarily going to see it on inbound phone calls, but because it is a California number, it's going to route through one of our California switches. So oftentimes you'll see at least two lines for a single call, and it essentially provides a temporary routing number to complete the call. It's still a single call, but because it is based in a different state, it's going to reflect that. Additionally, because we're talking Pacific and Mountain Time, you'll also see an hour time difference as well.
Now, I'd like to be clear, that 12:30 a.m. on July 20th, 2012, is that Mountain Standard Time?
That is Mountain Time. That was an outgoing call, so it's not as impacted as if it were an inbound call.
The routing that you just described, does that take a few seconds? Does that add a few seconds to the duration of a phone call?
It's possible. I mean, it's not anything uncommon. It happens all the time.
Okay. Do you still have People's Exhibit 1079 in front of you?
Page 4 of 8?
Yeah, do you have the entire exhibit in
Yes,
front
I
of you?
do.
My next question is, do you have information within Exhibit 1079, I apologize if I said 8, 1079, about the subscriber information?
I do.
Tell me about that, please.
Okay. Okay, the subscriber information for 858-449-7348 is listed under Robert Holmes. Would you like me to spell that out?
Yes, please.
Robert is R-O-B-E-R-T. Last name Holmes, H-O-L-M-E-S. At the address of 13310 Sparren, which is S-P-A-R-R-E-N Avenue in the city of San Diego, S-A-N-D-I-E-G-O, California. The zip code is 92129. There's also a contact number as well on here of 858-538-8850, which is listed as both the home and work contact number.
Jumping back to that 12:30 in the morning phone call that you just described.
Yes.
You testified that it was an 18-second phone call from the time that the number was dialed, correct?
That's correct.
Does that 18 seconds also include the time that it was ringing, say, to the other party and things of that nature?
That would include that time, yeah. It's as soon as it connects to our network, so as soon as the call is established, essentially.
And just so we're all aware, the actual vocal contents of that particular phone conversation, you would not have that, is that correct?
No, we do not have that.
In general, what was the time period that you looked at for this particular exhibit for the phone calls?
I would say the days and weeks leading up to July 20th, specifically starting on July 2nd, which is kind of the first calls made in the month of July.
Okay, what about June?
I looked at it, but not in as great detail.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that there was some information contained in Exhibit 1079 about text messages, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What information is contained within that exhibit related to text messages?
As far as the text messaging, mostly what is available here is the text message detail records, which essentially shows you the numbers that messages were sent to and from. There is a small amount of text content, but as far as text content goes, we only have about 3 to 10 days that we keep it in our system from the time that it's requested, so there isn't as much of that.
In this particular record, what is the text content that you're referring to? Do you have a chance to look at that?
I did, yes.
Talk about that, please.
All right. So it looks like the content that we did provide here stems from Saturday, July 14th, 2012, all the way up to July the 20th, 2012.
In general, what was some of the content of those text messages?
From what I had seen, it looks like it was alerts sent on our system from Verizon Wireless. I'm not sure what the specific type of alert was. It just states My Verizon Wireless.
Okay, just kind of in layman's terms for us and the jury, what are we talking about here? What's being sent?
Alerts could be, if you're maybe approaching your minutes, exceeding your data plan, things like that. It's just a courtesy alert letting you know of something that's going on with your Verizon Wireless account.
So for the time period that you were able to capture contents of the text messages,
Yes.
that's just a matter of days, is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah, that's all we were able to acquire.
Okay, so in other words, if I were to ask you, could you go back to June, May, regarding content of text messages, you would be unable to do that, is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah, like I stated, we only have roughly 3 to 10 days from the date you request it, so anything beyond that is not going to be available.
Based on the days that you do have and the contents of the text messages that you do have for that subscriber target number 858-449-7348, does there appear to be any outbound text messages? In other words, that number sent text messages to someone.
Let me check, one moment. No, they're all inbound text messages to the phone.
Okay. Were you able, in your preparation for testifying here today, to just kind of give a general glance as to the call activities in the months of June and July, the actual phone call activities?
Yes.
Give us your general impression of that.
Sustained?
Going back to the phone call, that 12:30 in the morning phone call, I may
Yes.
have asked this, but I'm going to ask it a different way. The 18 seconds that was related to that, does that include the dialing time, routing that to the actual number?
It basically starts as soon as you hit send on the phone.
Just going to have one moment, please.
Yes.
Nothing further at this time, Judge. Thank you.
Is there any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler? Yes. All right, you may proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start off with the phone call that was made by the target number on July 20th at 12:30 a.m. And the target number that we're talking about is 858-449-7348, correct?
Let me go ahead and pull that page up again, just yes, the target number is 858-449-7348.
And when we talk about target number, what we're talking about is the number that you're collecting data for as an employee of Verizon, right?
Correct. The subscriber number, the number that was requested, yes.
And the subscriber information for that target phone call listed back to a Robert Holmes, correct?
Yes,
And that was in Robert Holmes in San Diego, California.
yes.
Okay. And this was a family account that had 4 phone numbers listed or connected to this single account, right?
Let me confirm that.
And are you looking for the other number account data?
I'm looking to see if that's listed on the subscriber information right now. I don't see that listed in here, so I don't know if that's on another document possibly.
And Your Honor, if I may approach the witness, and I'll show the district attorney what I'm approaching with.
Yes.
And this is a content of Exhibit 1079, but it got lost in there. I'm going to show you this document. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, this is in here. It looks like it's the end of the page because they come in Excel format.
Okay, and according to this document, 4 phone numbers listed to that single account relating back to Robert Holmes.
Ms. Spengler, just so that the record is clear, you're showing him a copy of a page that's part of Exhibit 1079, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes, there are 4 numbers. One of them has a status code of D, which typically means disconnected.
Okay,
But yeah, I do show 4 numbers on here.
okay. And the number that we're talking about, the 858-449-7348, that number has been in existence since 2006, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, back to the phone call on July 20th. At 12:30 a.m. That was an outgoing phone call, right?
Yes,
Okay. And that was going to a phone number 720-848 0000, correct?
Yes.
Made at 12:30 a.m., correct?
Yes.
And are you aware that the 720-848-0000 is the University of Colorado Hospital Medical Hotline?
Unfortunately, the records don't tell us who that number belongs to, so I wouldn't be able to definitively say.
Okay. All right. I want to talk now about, step back and talk about the request that you received
Yes.
from the Aurora Police Department requesting these records. Now, in order for these to be accurate and true, you of course need to know what was requested by the Aurora Police Department, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that they made a request for all the records pertaining to the Verizon communications servicing that target phone number.
Yes, looks like we have the request here.
And that includes billing information, subscriber information, correct?
It says the subscriber information, including associated number on the account, incoming and outgoing call detail to include the cell sites, and text message activity reports from May 22nd, 2012 through July 20th, 2012. Did you want to know the additional items?
Well, the information requested by the Aurora Police Department had a time limit on it of May 22nd, 2012 to July 20th of 2012. Is that right? Is that what you just read?
Yes, for that information, correct?
Okay. And then in response, Verizon did provide a number of documents, and I just want to talk about the content of those documents in more detail.
Okay.
Verizon did provide, as we talked about, subscriber information, right?
Yes.
Verizon did include the incoming and outgoing call detail.
Yes.
That's also known as CDR,
Correct.
and that it can include cell site information.
Yes, it can.
And that includes the phone activity, including incoming phone calls,
Yes.
voicemails that are left,
It'll show the call was forwarded to voicemail.
with an indication of an F.
That's correct.
That would be within that chart that you were shown earlier.
Yes.
Will also include activity of outgoing phone calls.
Yes.
Also include text message activity.
Yes.
And the text message activity that Verizon was able to provide is actually greater in time than the text content that Verizon was able to provide. Is that right?
Correct. As far as just the, like I stated earlier, the numbers sent to and from, yes.
Okay. So in terms of text message activity, numbers sent to and from, that spans from May 22nd to July 20th.
Let's see.
And it looks like you're referring back to Exhibit 1079 again?
Correct. Yeah, the text message details, as far as that's concerned, was, looks like the May 22nd, 2012 through July 20th, 2012.
And just to be clear, the Aurora Police Department, when they made their request, requested records back to May 22nd to July 20th, right?
Yes.
And so that's responsive to their request, right?
Correct.
And then in terms of the actual content of the text messages, that's limited to that 10-day time period between July 10th and July 20th. Is that right?
Let me double check the exact time frame on that again. Yeah, you are correct. July 10th through July 20th.
Okay. And that's because Verizon doesn't keep text content longer than approximately 10 days.
Yes.
And then the RTT tower data, range to tower data, that was only available through Verizon from July 12th to July 20th, is that right?
Yes, that's what I show here.
Okay. And then The IP destination report, so that would be any web activity or IP addresses associated with internet activity, that dates back 60 days, correct?
Let me double check.
And again, you're referring to People's 1079?
Yes. Yeah, I apologize. I'm not, I mean, I'm sure it's in here, but it's quite voluminous. I'm not seeing it right here, so I don't, want to provide you the incorrect answer as far as the IP records.
Okay, okay. And just to talk about what's contained in 1079, it's not just that call activity and the text messages, but there's also volumes of internet activity that was taking place on the phone. Is that right?
Yeah, it does look like there are some IP addresses here, so that would be data activity.
Okay. Now I want to talk about the text message activity that's reflected in 1079. And I have copies for you, so it's a bit easier for you to look at this information.
Okay.
Yes. And again, these are copies of pages.